And very good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to hashtag It's Your Life. I'm Paul Daddietto, and with me,
David Levy.
Hello, David.
Hi, Paul.
We are your hosts and founders of Avise Group and Focal Adaptive Solutions for Trauma. Both David and I are full-time spousal caregivers, and we've been so for many years. We understand how you feel. We are also your expert guides into all things trauma and family caregiving. Today's show is about anxiety and self-esteem. Joining us shortly via Zoom is Leigha Benson, anxiety coach, support group leader, and Instagram host. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
All right. And every Friday at 1 o'clock, right after Dr. Mitch, here's where you'll find us, bringing you real subject matter experts, just like we have today. Leigha Benson, who we've had on before and was such a success, we had to bring her back.
Yeah.
And we also access real information for you. You know, you're listening to us live on Boca Chamber Radio. If you don't have it, bocachamberradio.com. Download the app. You can also download the app at iTunes or Play Store. All shows that we do are live streamed on Periscope, archived on the website, our website, www.avisegroup.com. That's ABISE group.com. And you're always welcome to join us in a conversation. Just call in at 561-424-7475. That's 561-424-7475. The Avise Group is all about healing and wellness because we work with clients struggling with trauma, mental health, major family caregiving issues. And so we're all about wellness and beyond. We're all about those who are actively seeking a life worth living. Right, Paul?
Absolutely, David. We're testing out today. We are live also on Periscope, Facebook, and on Instagram. So we appreciate your comments and your questions. And for any of us, or I guess Leigha, we're here to help and we're here to offer some information. David, being disturbed or having troubling behavior is usually the result of one or more traumas that have occurred in someone's life. We of Avise Group have developed focal adaptive solutions for trauma, specifically to clear trauma, meaning when something is painful, debilitating, it can leave a lasting impression and trigger negative reactions, sometimes long after the negative experiences actually happen. Often these impressions are beyond awareness, they're sort of running in the background, causing disruption in thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Before coming to us, many of our clients have spent years in more traditional psychotherapy and countless dollars without getting the results that they had hoped for. Focal Adaptive Solutions for Trauma has helped them quickly and effectively clear their trauma, having them re-energized with a new perspective on their daily lives and a more positive outlook on life. Isn't that what we seek in our lives? Well, you can finally have that too. David?
Right. And that's why we're here. And today we continue with one of our new features that we call hashtag self-talk. Each week we explore new ways of looking at life and trying out new ways of thinking. As we say every week at this particular point in time, when we change our perception, we change the reality of what we see. And that's very, very important. If you see negative, you're going to get negative. If you see positive, it's going to change your perspective and what you do see. And Focal Adaptive Solutions for Trauma, we call it Fast 4, all right, is about a quick, comfortable, and lasting release of trauma. Clients ask, what do they need to do to be ready to do Fast 4? Well, I can only tell you one thing, based on the clients that have gone through this. You need to show up. You need to believe in the fact that you're going to have success. And there's not much more you have to do except put yourself in the hands of our professionals and let them do what they do best. You don't have to face the old facts. You don't have to forgive your transgressors. You can just move on with your life using Fast 4. It's not voodoo, it's not magic, but it's very true, and it works. There are some folks, sometimes in the addiction world, where we may be able to work on the trauma, but the addiction is so compelling that together it doesn't quite work. But virtually every other trauma situation, whether it's self-esteem, whether it's sexual harassment or trauma, whatever it may be, we have folks that are very skilled in doing this and are ready and able to deal with you. And so many of our clients suffer with what we call false beliefs about yourself, all right, and what's required for change. Some of those, I need to forgive. Well, who do you need to forgive? Do you need to forgive your transgressor? That's much more of, respectfully, a religious approach. You know, the one you're forgiving is yourself for having gone through all of this and not asked for it. I need to love myself before I can love anyone else. Well, you have to feel good about yourself, but that doesn't mean that you can't love somebody. You can feel bad at times and love your children or love your significant other without trading off one for the other. I need to let go and move on. Well, you know, that's a cliche. And what are you letting go of? More importantly, how do you know how to move on? That's a lot of what Fast 4 is all about, is giving you a direction once you've been released from your trauma so that you don't stumble back and still stay in the same groove even though the trauma may be gone. Remember, this is a significant change in your mental attitude, and we've gotten you out of the hole, but we also need to help you to stay moving forward. And so it's a comprehensive way of doing things. Some of the other false beliefs, I need to understand myself. Well, that's true, but sometimes it's not so easy to be introspective about the things that are bothering you without a little bit of professional advice on the outside. You know, in the military, when they get into a combat situation, they fly a drone or an AWAC. It's very hard for us to be our own drone and have a perspective on what we need to understand about ourselves without a little bit of professional guidance. And sometimes I need to understand the origin of my problem. Well, that comes sometimes out of, you know, very specific empirical classic psychology and psychiatry. Do you really need to understand the origin, or do you really need to meet the issue in the here and now, resolve it and move on? And ultimately, if you discover where it came from, fine. But is it the issue? I have to find it before I can get better? Not necessarily. And that's what we want our clients to understand. You don't have to go back to the beginning of time to step forward from now to have a more productive and fruitful life. I need to have motivation. Well, sure, we all need to be motivated to do things, but if you want to get better, if you want to have a healthier relationship with yourself and with those around you, one might think that's sufficient motivation. But if you need more, that's what the trained professional is there to do, is show you that you really do have motivation. We just got to dig around a little bit and find it, because nobody wants to stay where they are and wallow in their own self-pity or difficulty. I need to have courage. You do. The moment you seek to help yourself and find help, you have the courage to change the circumstances that you're in. And never forget that, because it's very hard to define courage. You know, is courage sticking your head in a lion's mouth, or is courage the willingness to raise your hand and say, I need help and I'm going to seek it? I need to feel deserving. Well, we all deserve to have a better life. I won't use the word happy. I will say we all deserve to have a better life for ourselves, depending upon what our goals are, what we see for ourselves. And yes, you're always deserving of having a better life. That's not a dollar tag, it's what you perceive your concept of deserving is. I have to take responsibility. Well, that's a good acronym for life, or a good statement for life. I need to be responsible for the things I'm responsible for. But do you have to be responsible for the things that happened to you in the past that you did not even want to have happen, that you're now being told, well, it's your fault, or you have to work it all out? No, you have to take responsibility for things that happen on your watch. All right, and I'm taking it more in a business term, because everybody has to be responsible and accountable somehow. But you don't have to be responsible for the trauma that's happened to you in the past. And even though you may feel that it, quote, was your fault, this is all about remembering where we started this conversation. If you change the perception, you change your view. So in reality, all you need to do is where we started, is show up. No medication, no devices, no painful repetition of reliving past trauma, and almost all of the work is being done by the therapist. So this is a great program. It's deserving of your attention. If you feel you've been stuck and it's time to move ahead, just reach for my partner Paul. He's the front line of this, 561-313-1258. That's 561-313-1258. He answers all of his calls, and he will be happy to help you step into one of our program with one of our excellent therapists. Paul?
Thank you. I think, David, we ought to take a break at this point. I'm very excited to bring on our special guest, Leigha Benson. You're listening to hashtag It's Your Life on Boca Chamber Radio, and we'll be back in a few moments.
The fun doesn't stop here. Make sure you're following us on Instagram @Avise Group and Twitter @Avise Group LLC, because hashtag It's Your Life.
And we are back. You're listening to hashtag It's Your Life on Boca Chamber Radio. This is Paul Daddiato along with my co-host,
David Levy.
Yep. Today we're speaking all about anxiety and self-esteem. We invite your calls. Join in the conversations with comments or questions. 561-424-7475. 561-424-7475. We're also live streaming on Periscope, and we're live streaming on Instagram. Our guest today is a returning guest and a very, very good friend of the Avise Group, Leigha Benson. Leigha is a trauma survivor, and she has had first-hand experience with anxiety and self-esteem issues. She's very, very open about her life and now coaches others on overcoming their fears. Leigha is now part of the Avise team, Avise Group team, and she's helping women to move forward with their lives. Welcome, Leigha, to hashtag It's Your Life, and thank you so much for taking time to join us today.
Thank you so much, Paul. I'm so happy to be here.
And we're so happy to have you.
Thank you.
Leigha, last time you were here as a guest, the response was absolutely overwhelming. You spoke and people were moved and they were touched by what you had to say. So we'll go back just a little bit so that for those that may have joined in late, tell us a little bit about your early days of growing up and some of the struggles that you faced.
Well, my early days were really, sort of really filled with anxiety and fear around social situations. It was really like
Nose going okay.
Yeah.
I gotta be okay. Lower, just a little.
Leigha, did you experience bullying when you were in grade school? You were your own worst enemy. Yeah, you know. As you grew older and you got into adolescence, you know, high school, dating, the social status within the school, as you were struggling with not only the anxiety but also what you spoke about in terms of self-esteem, what was that like for you? Did you talk about this with Mom and Dad at home? Mm-hmm. Did you have a best friend or someone that you were comfortable in talking with? Given all that you've been through and those feelings that you had, you know, how did you recognize what was going on and finally overcome the challenges? You know, that aha moment when all of a sudden you saw a light that was different than what you were experiencing before.
Well, that's like two different perceptions, isn't it? They perceived you as a snob and you perceived yourself as insecure and not able to necessarily integrate with the group around you. And that's a zero-sum, you know, scenario. So that's tough to recognize as well as bring yourself out of. How did you begin to move forward, even though you recognized that where you thought you were and the perception that others thought you were trying to just be elitist? That's great. You know, I see when I do my support groups is that when somebody new comes in and the group is there, but the individual's never been part of a support group of people that have, whether it's caregiving or trauma, whatever it may whatever the subject matter may happen to be, first of all, their first remark is, I'm the only one this is happening to. And then when they hear others oh, well, it's not just me. And that starts to create a peer relationship where you don't have to explain yourself, but people are interested in hearing your story to see what their experiences that they've gone through can help to give you perspective. And once we get perspective, we change the view. And all right, and so I circled around on that one, but it's very true. When you can open up and talk to people that are not threatening, if you do, then you really have an opportunity to explore your stuff, get it out there, and take a good look at what's been bothering you. I mean, that doesn't mean you still don't need professional guidance, but it certainly is a big first step to realize where you are. Paul?
I just want to invite our listeners that if you'd like to join into the conversation and speak with Leigha or speak with David and myself, locally 561-424-7475. We welcome your comments and your questions. Leigha is a tremendous spokesperson for overcoming those stresses of anxiety and those doubts that you may have in the back of your mind. We all carry them at times. Leigha has successfully overcome them. Leigha, you had some relationship issues early on, did you not? Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Would you say in hindsight, looking at that particular experience, because in the beginning Paul asked you if you were bullied, and now the remarks that you just made, nobody deserves to be treated like that, or etc. Would you, without trying to put it in too tight a box, would you view that as a different form of bullying? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Leigha, it sounds like you're talking to the women in the audience who are in that very situation right now. So put on your coach's hat for a minute and tell them at this point, having been through that and having come out on the other side and being so whole, what do they need to be speaking to themselves about? What's that self-talk that did so much for you? Right. just to add a little punctuation to that, there are cases, of course, where men and women are injured in that type of a relationship. Some even lose their lives. And that being frozen in time when there is this very strong personality, to use a technical term, a narcissist personality, where they're so into themselves, they seek out people who have that view of themselves, and they come on very loving, very giving in the beginning of it. They make you feel safe and comfortable, and once you're ensnared in that web, then the true person emerges, and all of what you fear for yourself is what ultimately comes true. And I just, Leigha, I can't tell you enough how strong and how capable you are of looking into yourself and overcoming that. Understanding there are numerous approaches to helping women who are overcoming trauma. I know you do coaching, I know you do support group. Tell us a little bit more about how you're reaching out to deal not only with that type of a situation, but women who are struggling with how I look, how I'm accepted by others, what other people think of me.
Where is she? Quick. Where is she? But as you said, and I listen to you and I hear all that positivity from somebody that had all that personal negativity. When you first began to do it, it's easy to say to somebody who may be listening right now and saying, well, she was able to do it, but how do I really step out? Because here I've been for so many years kind of subjugated under a thumb, or my perception of no self-esteem, no self-worth. How does somebody in a position like that, without professional help, take that first step, as obviously you did without it, and recognize the things such as stepping out, looking at yourself, and changing negative to positive affirmations from somebody from birth who, let's say they're 16, 17, 21, 22, have been living with it? How all of a sudden, notwithstanding all the good things that you say, if somebody said, gee, I want to try and do that, you would say to them, the recognition that I have to now needs for me to find somebody that I can say it to, who can help guide me to pull myself out of this. Would you say that's got some truth to it? I like that.
Well said. Now, I'm sure along the way, Leigha, you had days that you started slipping back a little bit, days that you just
questioned yourself.
Yeah, you questioned yourself. Perhaps you spent the day in tears and whatnot. And that's okay. that's just part of the process. And some of it also is environmental. I mean, we're bombarded every day in the newspapers with shootings and people who are being mowed down on the streets, the terrible fires out in California. Situationally, there are going to be days that we wake up and we just feel the pain that others are having, and having that happy talk to ourselves sometimes is just not going to be giving us the results that we want. And I want everyone to know that that's normal. That's part of the human experience.
Right.
And as David was talking about in his support group, you're not going to be the only one in the world who feels that way. In fact, if you didn't feel the pain of others, that's probably an indication you have more work to get done. But it's an overall, over time progress that these are things that I can overcome. These are things that are not going to hold me back in going forward. I'm looking at the clock, David. I think we need to take our break.
Yeah, because you're listening to us on BocaChamberRadio.com, and we'll be right back. And we're talking with Leigha, who is always a brilliant perspective, because not only does she do things that help people in her coaching and her online support, but she's been there, she's done it, and she's proof that if she can do it, you can do it too. So we'll be right back. And don't miss the rest of the show, because we got some more great questions to ask Leigha and some other things we want to let you know about. So, Sam, take it away.
Now you can catch our show on the go. Tune in every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern for hashtag It's Your Life on the Boca Chamber Radio app and Periscope.
And we're back, and we've been talking with Leigha Benson, and we're going to be speaking with her in just a moment. There were some very interesting things she pointed out that Paul also put some perspective on. You can be as positive and get yourself back to all those good places, and when the firestorm hits you in California, or God forbid something happens and you were on the roadway in New York when that terrorist drove, there are things beyond our control, and the fact that negative things happen to positive people should not change the fact that they're positive people, and that you have to realize that the external things in the world not only affect you, but they affect a lot of people, and that it wasn't directed at you that a major life event occurred. And I think that's an important point that the two of you were getting at before we took a break. And I want our audience to understand that. And if any of you would like to comment, we're here at 561-424-7475. We'd love to hear from you. You can tweet us online. You can email us.
Instagram.
You figure out what you want to do. We're here to get it. And we'd love to hear from you. You're listening to hashtag It's Your Life. Paul?
Yeah, thank you. Leigha, now that you're part of Avise Group and you're a family member with us now, tell your listeners about that decision and why that was important to you in your growth and development.
Well, that's very true, and it's the synergy that we like to feel that Avise Group and our professionals and those who we respect and want to be a part of the team, like yourself, because always, it's the sum of the parts that really make the the whole better. And we're so pleased that you've made that decision, and that you're as forthright and informative as you are when you come on the air with us. It's that candor that the audience and others who may hear about it from the audience benefit from, because you didn't learn it out of a book. You learned it out of life, and there's a huge difference. It's like saying, well, gee, my son just graduated from law school. Wouldn't you like him to defend you for murder? You know, or my son's a doctor today. Do you want him to do open heart surgery on you? So, I mean, you know, it's the difference between book learning and the practical experience of what gets you to where you are.
Yeah,
that's great stuff.
I think, Leigha, with your personal experience and coming from the perspective, you know, I've been there. I understand how you're feeling. And speak of your own experience in listening to what others are saying. You have an understanding that equates with where they are at the moment, and can relate on a very intimate personal level how they are feeling, much different than any therapist, and David and I do, or any of our trauma therapists, because it's a first contact. And on the other side of the coin, when that trauma has been cleared, now they are ready to be coached, and now they're ready to continue on with that life path. And I think what you've put together in both your coaching program and a new project that you're working on perhaps is going to get them to where they need to go.
Right. But I can also tell you, and I'm going to just jump away a little bit from trauma. I've been advising and coaching people on family caregiving for 30 years. I've written the books on it, I've done the studies on it, and I'm not saying that from an egotistical or, you know, oh boy, look at me, I'm great. But the last 2 days, and I won't get into it, my wife has been in the hospital and bouncing back and forth between the hospital and a nursing home for rehab. And I always tell my caregivers, you've got to be there. You've got to be the advocate in the room. No patient can fend for themselves. And I look at it, you know, no individual can, when they've got a difficult situation, can just do it alone. And I have to tell you, the last 24 hours have pushed me to the limits of everything that I know. And when I look, and I don't say, oh, woe is me, I've done something wrong. But you really have to also learn how to think out of the box, because when bad things happen, you still have to resolve them. And it's just unbelievable what can happen with people and institutions that ostensibly have the best of intentions, but it just doesn't happen that way.
Leigha, I think you have a client here. I think you may need to set up an appointment. I think David is ready for the couch.
Right. But it's interesting, and even if somebody is as skilled as you are, or Paul or myself, when we're put back into those personal situations and it's us versus the other person, it's just extraordinary how you begin. I kind of forgot how it was to be victimized by the health system.
It happens all the time.
Yeah.
Leigha, we have been following in the news, and I'm sure you have been also, what's been going on in Hollywood with Harvey Weinstein, and then that hashtag #MeToo campaign where other women are coming forward after years of sexual harassment, sexual assault, and they're finally finding a voice to say, yeah, this has happened to me also. As you listen to what is being said, what comes to mind? What are you feeling? Yeah. And of course, it's not only in Hollywood. It makes no difference if you're talking about private industry, you're talking about school, you're talking about church, you're talking about athletics. In the current issue of Atlantic Magazine, there's a wonderful first-person story that's told about a young woman who early on in her life was taught by her mom to be independent, have your own money, have your own source of income. And she had a very successful career on Wall Street. And thinking back to her college days, she decided that she wanted to make a try at acting, and she went back to Hollywood, and the typical story, a lot of rejection. She never really got the parts, and she shifted gears and she turned towards screenwriting and becoming a director. And she started to become successful, and she started to get noticed, and she had the credibility that was there, until that one day she did get a call saying that Mr. Weinstein would like to meet you, and an appointment was set up to meet at the hotel when he was in town. As she went to the appointment, she was greeted by his private secretary, who was a woman about her age, and said, well, Mr. Weinstein is busy doing calls. He asked that you come up to his room. And she describes at that moment the trepidation that went through her mind with those words. But she found the courage, and she went up, and as she describes in the article, he met her in a bathrobe, and within a very short amount of time, it was clear that this was not going to be an interview about her skills and her talents, but she was there for a different reason. And as she says in the article, an unending supply of demand and an unending supply of need.
And threats.
And threats. And she got up and she left that meeting knowing how important it would have been to her career. And she went home and she just cried. And she cried not only for herself, but she cried for all of the other women who would be coming after her. And thinking about the parts that are written for women, how they're objectified and how they are dehumanized for whatever the story is going to call for on that. And her point in the article was that this whole idea of consent, David, besides the yes or the no, there's an economic consent that goes along with it. Mm-hmm. And you can take that out of the studio, you can put it in the church, you can put it in the bus station, you can put it pretty much wherever you are. A woman always is going to have to confront those type of situations. And more women are finding the courage now to speak out and say, no, that's not going to happen to me. Why do you suppose, Leigha, that now all of this is coming to a head and so many women are coming forward and speaking out on this?
Unfortunately, like it or not, it is a social, sexual dynamic that has grown up probably since the cavemen. All right, that women are the weaker sex, women are subservient, walk 7 steps behind me, whatever the circumstances may be. So while we now have a groundswell of certain women that have said, no more, it's time to come out, but I'm sure that for every one of those, just as Paul talked about the economic circumstances, there are at least 10 more that say, I wish I could, but I got to keep this job, and I can't open my mouth, even though I might want to say something, and that person who said something is not in the same situation, or they don't believe that I am economically, and that, I think, is part of what that Atlantic article was all about, that it's great to be courageous, but you still got to put food on the table.
So let's rewind that a little bit, and going back, boys and girls, they're taught no, they're talked about asking for consent, they grow into adulthood, and they navigate the dating scene, the interaction with whomever they're going to form a relationship, and then later on they have to understand that it's a co-equal basis that these relationships are going to form, and regardless of how a woman dresses, the neckline, the alcohol, the hemline, whatever it is, consent is always needed. It is never mitigated or never caused by what the woman is doing. And I'm sure you have personal experiences where you've encountered exactly that type of situation.
Well, you see it at times. I can remember growing up during the Stone Age.
Fred Flintstone.
There were times people would come back, and friends of mine would say, I took out Sally, and I bought her this great dinner. And somehow or other, that was supposed to be the quid pro quo for sex. But when did pizza and a bottle of wine equate to sex? But yet we carry around this whole bundle of expectations and kind of folklore, sexual folklore, that has been drummed into us, all right, that now that the media has allowed us to open up and have more visibility than just you alone, but yet those sexual scenarios still exist today, because there's a whole generation of people that grew up, many generations, that still want that.
And if we put an umbrella around it, we call it rape culture.
Yeah.
It's the jokes we make, the music that's playing, the television shows that are there, and in no circumstance is it ever okay to take advantage of a woman that way. And Leigha, that brings us to the point that the coaching that you're doing and the help that you can give to women, this is just one more area that you can help navigate. And maybe you want to talk a little bit about how people can get in touch with you, and how they may be able to, and what kinds of things that they can talk about with you and feel comfortable with, to getting good advice. Again? Well,
okay. And remember, folks, if you didn't have an opportunity to write down the website or the Facebook page, you can always call Paul at 561-313-1258. All you have to say is, I was listening to Leigha. He's not going to probe into what's going on, and he can put you in touch with her. So 561-313-1258 gets you anything and everyone that Avise has to offer our audience and our clients.
Well, I tell you, I will give you a ringing endorsement, Leigha. You're one of my favorites on Instagram. I follow everything that you do, and I listen to what you're saying and how you're saying it. And when we've spoken privately, it's that pebble in the water and the ripples that flow out from your heart to those that you're speaking to. You can't see how far those ripples go and the effect that you're having on the people that you're speaking to. It truly is remarkable, and I greatly commend the work that you're doing, and so pleased as co-founder of Avise Group that you're going to be working with our clients and being able to give them guidance beyond the trauma that we clear to help that life go into a very good direction. Leigha, just for those who are listening and say, well, what's going to happen if I speak to Leigha? Just give us a quick synopsis. What happens when they call to you the first time, or they ask to speak with you either by computer? And Leigha, that first call you do without charge. It's complimentary, is it not? Mm-hmm. It's that little spoon at Haagen-Dazs before you have to decide what's going in the cone.
It's the hors d'oeuvre before the dinner.
Well,
all right.
Well, David, as we're getting ready to wrap up our day, I first would like to say, Leigha, tremendous thank you for coming back and visiting with us today and sharing your insights, your wisdom, your experience, and all the love that you have in your heart for our listeners and all the people who have viewed us on all of the social media platforms that we are. You are just awesome. Thank you.
And we look forward to growing this relationship with you, and obviously having you back more frequently than not, because your wisdom and your insight, your age, your perspective on things really resonate with that millennial crowd, Gen Xers. And I think that's so important because it's the media that is attracting them, and to have folks that they can identify with, as you said, that phone call to see whether there's synergy, etc. But having something that isn't hugely age
it's not
diverse.
It's not age adverse at all. And Leigha, I know you're going to be putting messages out for our listeners and for our clients, sharing some of the wisdom of what's going through your head at any given time, and we look forward to finding that. I'd like to take a few months and thank our partner out in Clearwater, Tiffany Werner. Tiffany is a licensed mental health counselor. Her show is Moments of Clarity. She airs every Thursday and every Friday on Tan Talk Radio 1340. You can also find her show podcasts on Moments of Clarity with Tiffany.com. You'll find the shows are amazing. I was on the show yesterday. We had a wonderful discussion, and I'd love you to be part of that. David, I see we have about 2 minutes left.
Right. And I want to say that Paul has been working very hard along with our professionals to find other subject matter experts that will be bringing you live or Skype or whatever it may be through our program here at #It'sYourLife. And Paul, who do we have next week?
Next week we have Tiffany Dilworth, who is a therapist up in the Maryland area, and she's having some tremendous success in the therapy that she is doing. And we're going to talk specifically about therapy with women of color and how that might be different than what traditional therapy is like. You'll find us on Boca Chamber Radio every Friday at 1 o'clock. Make it a great week. Be kind, be patient with each other. David?
All right, and you can always call Paul at 561-313-1258. He'll touch base with you. You can call, leave a message, and we can connect you with anybody in our system that you'd like to speak to, as well as arrange for you to have the benefit of focal adaptive solutions for trauma. So have a great week, and we look forward to seeing you next Friday at 1 o'clock, right after Dr. Mitch.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great week. Take care and be kind. Bye-bye.